بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. مساء الخير لكم جميعا. أود أن أبدأ بأن أرحب بمعالي وزير خارجية لوكسمبورغ كزافييه بيتل في زيارته الأولى للأردن بصفته وزيرا للخارجية، وفي هذه الزيارة التي استكملنا فيها المحادثات التي كنا أجريناها في لوكسمبورغ قبل أسبوعين، والتي ركزت على الأولوية الأساس الآن في المنطقة، وهي وقف العدوان الإسرائيلي ووقف الكارثة الإنسانية التي يسبب، ووقف التصعيد الكارثي الذي نحمل إسرائيل مسؤوليته كاملة. قبل ذلك تحدثنا عن علاقاتنا الثنائية، ونحن ولوكسمبورغ تجمعنا علاقات صداقة ثنائية قوية، وبحثنا اليوم كيفية أن نأخذ هذه العلاقات إلى مستويات أفضل من التعاون الثنائي في جميع المستويات، ووقعنا مذكرة للمشاورات السياسية التي ستكون خطوة باتجاه تعريف مساحات التعاون التي نريد أن نعمل عليها، ومن أجل أن نبني على هذه العلاقات. فنثمن هذه العلاقات مع لوكسمبورغ، ونثمن أيضا موقف لوكسمبورغ الواضح في الدعوة إلى وقف فوري ودائم لإطلاق النار، في الوقوف إلى جانب القانون الدولي والقانون الدولي الإنساني وميثاق الأمم المتحدة، في الدعوة والعمل من أجل إنهاء الكارثة الإنسانية في غزة وتحقيق السلام العادل والشامل في المنطقة، ودورها أيضا في إطار الاتحاد الأوروبي، حيث صوتها أيضا واضح وصريح في ضرورة أن يكون القانون الدولي والقانون الدولي الإنساني وميثاق الأمم المتحدة المعيار الذي تبنى وفقه كل السياسات وكل المواقف. فأرحب بك في الأردن، والزيارة تأتي في وقت صعب جدا، إذ يستمر التصعيد الإسرائيلي في المنطقة من اغتيال رئيس المكتب السياسي لحماس في الأمس، وهي الجريمة التي أدناها جريمة تصعيدية تمثل خرقا واضحا للقانون الدولي، خرقا واضحا لسيادة الدول، وفعلا سيدفع باتجاه المزيد من التصعيد ويهدد بتوسع الحرب إقليميا، ما سينعكس سلبا ليس فقط على الأمن والسلم في منطقتنا، ولكن سيهدد الأمن والسلم الدوليين أيضا. نحن في المملكة الأردنية الهاشمية نؤكد مواقفنا بأنه يجب أن نعمل جميعا من أجل خفض التصعيد، لكن الخطوة الأولى لخفض التصعيد هي إنهاء سبب التصعيد، وهو استمرار العدوان الإسرائيلي على غزة أولا، استمرار الإجراءات الإسرائيلية اللاشرعية التي تقتل كل فرص تحقيق السلام في المنطقة في الضفة الغربية ثانيا، تهديد إيجاد الظروف التي تهدد بتوسع الحرب عبر أيضا خرق السيادة اللبنانية، وهو الأمر الذي أيضا ندينه بشكل واضح وصريح. نحن في المملكة نريد أن نتجاوز هذه الكارثة، من أجل ذلك خطابنا واضح أن نتجاوز هذه الكارثة يجب أن يبدأ بأن يتخذ المجتمع الدولي مواقف واضحة، ويتخذ إجراءات أيضا واضحة تلجم هذه العدوانية الإسرائيلية وتلزم إسرائيل احترام القانون الدولي والقانون الدولي الإنساني. ولا يجوز أن يكون مستقبل المنطقة مرهون بالعقائدية الإلغائية والانتقامية الفجة لرئيس الوزراء الإسرائيلي وأعضاء في حكومته يتحدثون صراحة ويتصرفون صراحة بما يعكس عنصريتهم وتطرفهم ورفضهم لحق الفلسطينيين بأن يعيشوا مثلهم مثل أي شعب على هذه الأرض بحرية وبكرامة وبممارسة حقه في تقرير مصيره. اللحظة خطرة جدا، الأوضاع تتدحرج نحو الهاوية، والمسؤولية مرة أخرى وأكد لذلك تقع على عاتق إسرائيل، وعلى المجتمع الدولي كله أيضا مسؤولية أن يقول كفى، أن يتصرف وفق قيمه، وفق القوانين الدولية، وفق القوانين الدولية الإنسانية، وأن يتخذ الإجراءات التي تكبح جماح هذه العدوانية الإسرائيلية وتحمي المنطقة وشعوبها من ويلات حرب جديدة، وتحمي أيضا مستقبل المنطقة الذي يجعله نتنياهو وحكومته مستقبلا مهددا بالمزيد من المعاناة والمزيد من الحروب والمزيد من الويلات. فندعو كل شركائنا في المجتمع الدولي وفي الاتحاد الأوروبي تحديدا بأن يتخذوا المواقف والإجراءات التي تنسجم مع قيم الاتحاد الأوروبي، مع القوانين الدولية، وأن يساعدونا في حماية منطقتنا وحماية مستقبلنا من هذه العقائدية الإلغائية التي تستمر إسرائيل في فرضها على المنطقة. لا يجوز ولا نستطيع أن نسمح لأجندة هذه الحكومة المتطرفة في إسرائيل بأن تدفع المنطقة نحو المزيد من الدمار. فاللحظة، أؤكد مرة أخرى، اللحظة صعبة، لحظة حرجة، والمواقف غير الواضحة لن تكون كافية. نريد من المجتمع الدولي كله وندعو مجلس الأمن الدولي إلى أن يتصرف وفق تكليفه ووفق صلاحياته، وأن يحمي حق هذه المنطقة في أن تعيش بأمن وسلام، وأن لا يسمح لدولة أصبحت دولة مارقة في أن تفرض المزيد من الحرب والدمار على المنطقة. فأشكرك صديقي العزيز على مرة أخرى على فرصة اللقاء وعلى مواقفكم الواضحة وعلى جهودكم من أجل أن نذهب باتجاه مستقبل أفضل تستحقه المنطقة وتستحقه كل شعوبها. فأهلا وسهلا بك والحديث لك، تفضل.
شكرا, my friend. So the first thing is, yes, you said 2 weeks ago you were in Luxembourg and you invited me to come. I just want to tell you, and to avoid the impression that I have nothing else to do, and that's the reason why I came to Jordan. It's the fact that after listening to you, I thought it was so important also to show the situation in Jordan, to not only see it, but to share it. And so that's also why I'm so pleased also to have a press delegation, to show, in fact, because in the conflict we have in the region, and especially now the war from Israeli side, is a fact after the hostages and attacks of the 7th, just the fact that we don't speak about the collateral consequences, and also about the war in Syria, about the collateral consequences. We just have in mind for the moment to support the situation in Palestine and in Gaza, and to watch the stability of these two countries. But here, and I would like to take the opportunity to thank all the Jordanians, to show the solidarity that they have, and also you leadership as a Minister of Foreign Affairs, and also the leadership of your king, knowing him, to keep the most stability that is possible in a region where instability is more rule than stability. First thing. The second thing is the solidarity that you have. I visited this morning a refugee camp with the Syrian, the Zahatari refugee camp by UNHCR. And I spoke to these people. And you know, I come from a country where during my youth, to grow up, I'm now 51, I never had this situation. And together with the Luxembourgish delegation, we met a Syrian lady who told us that, I told her, why did you leave Syria? She said, because my sister, the husband of my sister, and the children of my sister were killed the same day. So the evening we decided that it's better to leave. And I asked her, what did you took with you? She said, my dress, nothing else. We should all realize what it means to leave your country, what it means to leave your story, what it means to leave your family, what it means to leave your house. Maybe just few things you had behind yourself. I spoke with young children. They grew up in the camp. They were born in the camp. They just have known Jordan. But when you spoke to them, they told me, as soon as we can grow up in peace, we want to go back to Syria. But then it's our duty also to see, not only to consider how are they able to survive here in Palestine, but also to in Jordan, but how can we give them also a new life maybe once in Syria. It's also a duty that international community should have, and not to say, okay, we don't know how long it will take, maybe it will be forever. This is not, because their wish for themselves, it's to go back also in the country where they come from. When we see the situation in Gaza and Palestine, I would like to thank you for your personal leadership, because you give a voice to a lot of people who have no voice. I told you I grew up in peace. I grew up where never having to ask myself. It was not always like that. Also in my country, I should not forget that we had world wars also. But we created this European Union where we shout very often, we fight in Brussels in discussions, but we never have arms. We never have the fact that you have to leave your own country in Europe to go somewhere else. But even on the European continent, we should not forget the war in Ukraine also by Russian aggressor. So, in fact, peace, but also stability are never granted. And we think it's granted. And I was 2 days ago, I was in Latvia, neighboring country from Russia. And they live from the consequences from the Russian aggression. And I don't want to be comparing the visits, but today in Jordan, you live also through the consequences of a conflict, just where you are not an actor, but a witness, but trying to be, I don't want to say an actor, but to be the one who will say that we need a two-state solution, that we need the right of people to live where they are. And I belong to a country where we believe in the two-state solution. We believe that what happened in the last 40, and I have to tell you, before landing from Riga and preparing my luggages to come here, the situation was different when I land in Amman. There were these two attacks from Israel in Tehran and one in Beirut. And where I can't tell you today what will be the reaction. But at the end of the day, you, again, will have to live with consequences. Because if there is an attack from Iran, if there is an attack from others, you again live in the middle where nobody is responsible for, but you have to live with the consequences of. And so this is why I really appreciate all the efforts you do to promote peace and stability also in the region. And when I see the solidarity also with the refugee crisis, we have one big problem in the world, I have to admit. It's that we consider that very often the geographical situations make you responsible for the consequences of your geographical situation. We saw it with the refugees in the European Union. We said to Malta, we said to Italy, we said to Portugal, we said to Spain, we said to France, you have to take care because you are the neighbors. It's the same here. We cannot say that the burden is just for the one being there because he's geographically there. And very often my own partner countries in the European Union, they ask us now solidarity because they have some Ukrainian refugees where they had not shown solidarity before, when we needed also solidarity for other moments. So it is important to have mechanism working really on a permanent base where solidarity, it's not just to get, but also sometimes to give. And you gave a lot. You gave a lot. And I believe that today it is important, and we will see how we can support the Hashemite Charity Organization, we will see how we can support also your government and also with the Syrian refugees, how we can do really efforts. I have to admit, before coming here, I didn't know the situations. Now I asked my team if we have some money left overs, and so there we found directly 250,000 euros for the Hashemite organizations, but we will continue to look. Because as you know, the budget are going to be done always on the 1st of January not only on the 1st of January, but it's always for a year, but trying to find how we can be useful also through this visit. But we have been, my country, and I told you, the burdens has to be shared. Luxembourg is channeling its humanitarian aid to the refugees in Jordan through the UNHCR, to the UNRWA, and some NGOs with an average contribution of 500,000 euro per year since 2016. So it's not new, and we will continue to do it. Because it's not only for a visit and then you do one shot. Because you need predictability. And the worst situation of a country is when you know that because of the consequence, I said it's not only because of refugees. It's also, and you told me the figures of tourism, that tourists, even from my country, Luxembourg, are falling down. And so we know all the economic consequences also of instability and the trust of the people in the consumption, etc., and etc. So I really believe that it is important to continue to support Jordan. That was why I wanted to come, to show that when we speak about a war, there is the victims, but there are also collateral damages, and there are neighboring countries suffering a lot, but this is material. On the other hand, we should not forget that people are dying every day, and that the political will that we have both countries to have a ceasefire is the first condition. To have a two-state solution, I know it won't be easy, it won't be for tomorrow, has to be our priority to continue. But even if I'm not the biggest country in Europe, you can count on our solidarity, on our help, on our support. And if we can be useful, we will try to continue to do it. And we should not forget that we were all once in our own history, once also in difficult situations. It could have been a war situation. For my country, also refugees. In the 19th century, my country was a poor country. A lot of Luxembourgers left the country because they were not able to have enough food. We should not forget that. Not only to get, but also to give should be in people's mind. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you.
شكرا. السؤال الأول شهد الطراونة تلفزيون المملكة.
شغال؟ اوكي. Thank you, Excellencies. يعطيكم العافية. في إطار العلاقات الثنائية وتجديد التعاون الدائم بين الأردن ولوكسمبورغ بنحب نحكي عن اليوم التوغل عم يكون أكبر في الأراضي المحتلة في غزة تحديدا. المساعدات، الأردن حملت الراية من أول يوم في تقديم مساعدات عبر الجسر الجوي والبري. بنحب نعرف من خلال العلاقات الثنائية إن كان هناك توسع لجلب مساعدات أكبر للفلسطينيين في غزة، وأيضا ضمان حماية المدنيين سواء في غزة أو حتى في الضفة الغربية. شكرا.
أبدأ بالقول بأن الوضع الإنساني في غزة يزداد كارثية. اليوم نحن في وضع أسوأ مما كنا قبل أسبوع، وقبل أسبوع كان أسوأ مما كان قبل أسبوعين. والسبب في ذلك مرة أخرى هو أن إسرائيل تستخدم التجويع سلاحا وترفض إدخال المساعدات ولا توفر الظروف التي تحتاجها المنظمات الأممية بما فيها الأونروا، وهي المنظمة الأساس من القيام بدورها في غزة وإيصال المساعدات. وتعلمون جميعا أن قوافل الأمم المتحدة ومنظمات أممية تعرضت لاستهداف مباشر من قوات الاحتلال الإسرائيلي في غزة. نحن في المملكة كنا بدأنا بعملية الإنزالات الجوية، وكما قال جلالة الملك نعرف أن ذلك لا يلبي الحد الأدنى من احتياجات غزة، لكن كنا قمنا بذلك لأن ذلك كان الخيار الوحيد المتاح آنذاك. وكل لقمة خبز قادرين على إيصالها في غزة تسهم في تلبية احتياجات 1,300,000 فلسطيني ممن أفقدوا كل مقومات الحياة بسبب العدوان الإسرائيلي وبسبب سياسة الحصار والتجويع التي اعتمدتها إسرائيل. المساعدات التي تدخل الآن في حدها الأدنى من المملكة، نحن كنا أكدنا أننا قادرون على أن نرفع عدد الشاحنات التي تدخل غزة. الآن يذهب من الأردن بحدود 40 شاحنة كل يوم بعد يوم. نحن قادرون أن نرفع ذلك الرقم إلى أكثر من 500 شاحنة يوميا، لكن من أجل ذلك نحتاج أولا أن يكون هنالك قدرة على إيصال هذه المساعدات لغزة، وأن ترفع إسرائيل المعوقات التي تضعها أمام إدخال المساعدات. نحتاج منظمات الأمم المتحدة أن تستلم هذه المساعدات وأن توزعها إلى شمال غزة ومن عبر شمال غزة إلى وسط غزة وإلى جنوب غزة، لأن المساعدات التي كانت تأتي عبر معبر رفح الآن أيضا توقفت بشكل كبير. 40 شاحنة فقط يدخلون غزة الآن من معبر كرم أبو سالم، وهذه تواجه تحديات كبيرة نتيجة انهيار أيضا الأمن والنظام في غزة. فإيصال المساعدات هذه الخطوة الأولى. الخطوة الثانية ضمان أن يكون هنالك منظمات أمم متحدة ومنظمات أممية قادرة على استلام المساعدات وتوزيعها، وهذا يتطلب أيضا أن تزيل إسرائيل المعوقات التي تضعها. وثالثا نحتاج أيضا دعما لزيادة المساعدات. ثمة متطلبات حقيقية، وأقولها بصراحة أن حجم المساعدات التي تأتي من أجل إرسالها إلى غزة قد تراجع أيضا، فثمة أمور عملانية نحتاجها أيضا لزيادة المساعدات، عدد الشاحنات، كلفة التشغيل وإيصال المساعدات. وهذا أمر ناقشته بشكل مكثف مع معالي الوزير الآن، ولوكسمبورغ تساعد الأونروا بشكل مباشر، وكما قال إنهم يبحثون الآن عن سبل لزيادة المساعدات لغزة، وهذا حوار مستمر بيننا. وأعرف وأكد معاليه بأنه سيقوم بكل ما يستطيع من أجل الإسهام في هذه العملية، لكن مرة أخرى التحدي هو أكبر من أن نستطيع نحن في المملكة وأصدقائنا في لوكسمبورغ وحدنا أن نلبيه. نحتاج إلى أن يتحرك المجتمع الدولي كله وبشكل فاعل، ليس فقط في توفير المساعدات ولكن أيضا بإلزام إسرائيل احترام مسؤوليتها كقوة قائمة بالاحتلال، وإلزامها باحترام القانون الدولي الإنساني، وعدم استخدام التجويع سلاحا، والسماح للمنظمات الأممية للعمل بشكل حر وفاعل في غزة.
Just to tell you a few things. The first thing is Minister Safadi really, as I told you before, give a voice to the people in Gaza and Palestinians on a manner where no one can not care. First thing. Second thing is, I had pressure. You know, the UNRWA was a big question in European Union and worldwide. Are you going to support them? Are you going to stop the support? I'm going to visit them now. If I read the Israeli news, I should hide that I would visit a terrorist organizations. I'm proud to visit an agency supporting the people. And when you go to Palestine, you would see that people would have education, they would have no health, they would have no food without the UNRWA. It's not perfect. That's why we have also the Colonna report. And the Colonna report has to be implemented. That's the condition of my support. But I never stopped the support to UNRWA. I will continue. I even raised the support to UNRWA. And I'm not ashamed to going to visit them soon and to show the support to their team. Not all is perfect, but no one is perfect.
شكرا سيدي. صحافة لوكسمبورغ كورديلا please.
Minister Beitel, in there we go. In January, you had told the Luxembourg Parliament that Luxembourg is a friend of neither Israel nor Palestine, but a friend of peace. With the establishment of these bilateral relations, where do you see Luxembourg's role in the de-escalation, but also 6 months since that statement and 6 months of war in Gaza down the line, how tenable is it to maintain a position of neutrality? Thank you.
The fact is, the biggest error is to say that you are against someone. This is human. It's human to say, I'm against. And believe me, on the 7th of October, everybody was against the Hamas. Everybody was supporting, I'm speaking now for European countries. Everybody was saying, this is not acceptable. We have to support Israel. But when then the images came from the response from Israel in Palestine, you know, it was like a clock. It came back to the other side, where people say, this is not acceptable, this is not proportional, this cannot be self-defense, when we see all of this. Then the attack from Iran came. Then again, people said, this is not normal, this is not acceptable, we have to support Israel. Then the images of Rafah came, where people say, this is not acceptable. So it's human, it's pending from one side to the other, and what is terrible, it's to say, I'm against. I'm in favor of peace, believe me. And this still does not mean that I'm against Israel. And meaning being against Israel doesn't mean that you are in favor. I'm in favor of peace. And I know it was when it was in the paper when I said I'm not the friend of the one or the others. I'm not the enemy. Should be better to say to the one and to the other. Because we will need both parties to have a peace agreement. We will need both parties to have a two-state solutions. And so we still should have open canals to be able to speak to the one, lie to the others. And so my position from January, from February, from March, from April, from May, from June, and now July and August is still the same. I'm in favor of peace, and this is what is needed. And don't say that you are against someone. The fact is, this is black or white, and I haven't seen a situation where it's gray as it is there. But it's going from dark gray to light gray to like a balance, and this is human because of the situation. This is human feelings. And when I see people, they tell me on the 7th of October, we need to support Israel. On the 7th of December, they tell me we need to support Palestine. On the 5th of March, they say you need to support Israel. On the 5th, now after the attacks on the Golan, they said you need to support Israel. I support peace. I don't want to support a state where I won't be able to find excuses. But I need still to have open relations and to speak, and it's not against Israel or against Palestine. I told to the Palestinian friends when I visited them in Ramallah that we need processes, that we need elections in Palestine, that we need an economic and a perspective, and that we need, I said to the Israelis, we need the money they owe to pay also the salaries, because if Palestine is exploding because of economic collapse, this will be again more danger for them. And I'm able to speak to both, and I want to continue to speak to both. But I want a caution, and I'm not the lawyer of Israel, but I'm also not the prosecutor of the other. I want to be able to say when good things are done, and I want to be able to say when bad things are done. But I just told to Israel that they should realize that we cannot find arguments for some actions where there are no excuses and no argumentations to justify.
Thank you. If I may just add something for the benefit of our colleagues from Luxembourg. Let's have the facts speak. And let's have international law, international humanitarian law, UN Charter as the criteria against which we benchmark and we articulate our positions on what's going on. And let me just tell you some of the facts. Israel has killed, thus far, 39,480 Palestinians in Gaza, of whom 14,000 are children, 9,000 are women, and the number of injured is 91,128. On the West Bank, since October 7, Israel has killed 593 Palestinians, 144 of them are children, and the number of injured is over 5,520. Israel has killed more humanitarian workers than any conflict in history. Of UNRWA alone, Israel has killed 202 humanitarian workers. Yesterday, Israel killed 2 journalists, Ismail al-Ghul and Rami al-Rifi from Al Jazeera news station, bringing the number of journalists killed to 165. And those people were killed as they were doing their job, reporting. And I was going through some reports today and some images on Twitter and X and others, and I saw that Ismail Ghul, and he's a man, despite the war, despite the suffering, despite the pain, he was always smiling. And there was a picture, a video of him today playing with kids in the middle of the war, just trying to bring a smile to their faces. And Israel targets him yesterday and kills him. This is not the doing of a country that respects international law. This is not the doing of a country that wants to end the conflict and bring about peace. Yesterday, a report came by the High Commission for Human Rights, and it spoke very unequivocally of Israeli violations of international law in prison and detention centers in which it is illegally keeping Palestinians. And according to the UN High Commission for Human Rights, 59 Palestinians have been killed in Israeli prisons. and it speaks of all kinds of illegal torture. And that report is available for everybody to see. So these are the facts. And even more, yesterday Israel assassinated Ismail Haniyeh. He was the one who was negotiating the exchange deal. So how on earth is a country that wants to conclude a deal kills the main interlocutor in those negotiations? So when Netanyahu decided and sent his missiles to assassinate Haniyeh in Iran in violation of the sovereignty of another country and bringing escalation to a very high level, is that somebody who wants the deal to work? And all the work that has been done by Egypt, Qatar, the US to bring a deal that would have brought a ceasefire, that would have released hostages, released prisoners, Israel decided to undermine all of that yesterday. So let's look at the facts. And again, in our conversation with our European friends, we say, let's just have one standard by which we articulate and build positions. And let that standard be international law, international humanitarian law, and UN Charter. All those facts, and there are many, many more facts, that speak to the fact that the Israeli government, the most radical in the history of Israel, in which it has serving ministers who speak openly of the Palestinian people as human animals, who speak of them as having no human rights whatsoever, who label UNRWA a terrorist organization, even though UNRWA was the only glimmer of hope for Palestinian refugees. 260,000 kids used to go to UNRWA schools in Gaza. Now those schools have either been destroyed or have become shelters. These are facts. So the fact is, we all want peace. But in order for peace to prevail, it has to be just, and it has to fulfill the rights of all. And that's why we've been working and we've been saying we need to implement the two-state solution. Because there are 5 million Palestinians now living under Israeli occupation. Israel only tells you what it does not want. Can anybody ask Israel, and I'm sure you met with Israeli officials, Your Excellency, what do they want? What is the future of 5 million Palestinians under Israeli occupation? What's the future of 2.3 million people in Gaza now who have lost everything? Over 80% of Gaza population have been displaced. Over 70% of schools have been destroyed. Their mosques, their churches, their hospitals have been destroyed. This is the reality. And we speak of de-escalation. Yes, we want to de-escalate because, as my friend said, we are in the middle of the war in Jordan. We're paying a heavy price for this. So we want peace. But we know that the only peace that will work is one that will end the root cause of conflict, which is occupation, and would fulfill the Palestinian people's right to freedom and statehood on their national soil. So yes, everybody in the world now that you ask says, we want to de-escalate. We all want to de-escalate. But how do you de-escalate? And again, as I said in my introductory remarks, the first step towards de-escalation is to end this brutal, barbaric war on Gaza, allow Palestinians in Gaza to have food and medicine, stop measures that are killing the prospects for peace on the West Bank, and then engage in a plan to implement the two-state solution whereby the Palestinians will know that they have a future to live like any other people, in freedom, in dignity, in their own state, and then the region will have peace. So, but this Israeli government, everything that it has done and everything that it has said, speak to the fact that it does not want peace, so we do not have a partner for peace in Israel now, period. That is the reality, and this is the reality, this is the point of departure from which all of us should start our discussion about how we go forward. Thank you.
One point is just that Israelis has to understand that the fact that Palestinians can grow and live in peace will be the best in their own country, will be the best security for Israel. And that's what they want.
Tim?
Thank you very much. I've got a question for Minister Safadi. You've been talking about the recent headlines, recent conflicts risking to escalate in the region. what would be the consequence in this case for Jordan? What do you actually fear? And as a possible consequence, can Jordan actually accommodate any more refugees?
The answer to your first question is no. We will not have any more refugees. We simply cannot. And if I may detour a little bit to the Syrian refugees before I come back to the rest of your points, on the Syrian refugees as well, we have 1.3 million Syrians in Jordan. Only 10% of them live in camps. 90% live all over the country. Syrian students constitute 11% of our official schooling, population of our official schooling system. 50% of Syrians in Jordan are under the age of 18. And the fact is, the international community is not living up to its commitments when it comes to Syrian refugees. So basically, the burden of refugees is shifting towards us. And we simply, and I've said that in Brussels to my colleagues, and I will reiterate it here again, we will not be able to fill the gap that will result from the international community and UN organization not doing their role. We simply cannot. The answer to refugees is to go back to their country. But until they go back to the country, we have to make sure that they are provided with dignified lives, but that responsibility cannot fall on host countries alone. We simply cannot. We don't have the resources. I was just telling my colleague that per capita share of water in Jordan has decreased by 60% since 2013. 60%. So this is the reality that we have. We have about 150,000 Syrian kids that go to our schooling system. 200 schools in Jordan operate on the 2 shifts. So if donors and UN organizations are not to do their role, if they do not provide the support that we need to keep those 200 schools open, they will close. As a result of cuts of funding for UN organizations, the Azraq refugee camp, for instance, is now having 9 hours of electricity a day instead of 13. If they do not provide electricity, the camp will go dark. We will not provide electricity, simply because we cannot. Our first responsibility is towards our people. And our people are suffering because we are also paying the price of all the crises that you see in the region, including the crisis on Gaza. Number of tourists have decreased. Some countries like Spain, 82%, Germany, similar numbers, Luxembourg, 60%. Our consumer confidence is low, people are not spending, so our economy is hurting. In addition, we have to maintain high alert on our borders because we have to protect Jordan. We will not allow anybody to turn Jordan into a battleground. And I underline anybody. We have to protect our country. So now, if there is any escalation, our first priority is protect Jordan, protect the safety of Jordanians. And that means anybody who tries to violate our skies, to the extent that we can, we will stop them. Because Jordan will not be a battleground for anybody. So we're suffering a lot of consequences of this. And again, in order for us to be able, as a region, to move towards peace, we all know what needs to be done. We just all have to have the, be consistent with what we believe is our humanitarian values, and say the party who's denying the region their right to live in peace, the party who's denying the region the ability to focus its resources in creating better future for its people, the party who's keeping the threat of war alive and threatening all of us, must be held accountable. That party is Israel. And Israel has to be accountable for its action. It cannot continue to commit murder with impunity. That is the fact. It cannot continue to jeopardize the future of the whole region to more wars and more horrors without being accountable. And that is why we say it is time the world has acted. This aggression has gone for far too long. Israel has enjoyed impunity for far too long. That has to stop if we are to achieve the future of peace that we in Jordan and all our partners want for everybody. Israel will not have security unless Palestinians have security. That is a fact, and Gaza has shown this. So if they want peace, the path is clear. Right now, stop measures that undermine the two-state solution. Stop the building of settlements. The year 2024 has witnessed the largest land grabs in over 30 years, which means they've confiscated more Palestinian land, which means they're suffocating the space for the two-state solution to be realized again, which means they're killing the prospects for peace. Israel has suffered a strategic defeat in this war. Israel has become a pariah state, and the Israeli people need to know that. And the world has to look at not just what is happening now, but at what will happen in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Israel keep shifting the bar. Their declared objective, they wanted to eliminate Hamas. I said it before, I say it again. Hamas is an idea. You cannot bomb an idea out of existence. You can provide an alternative. And the only alternative is to assure the Palestinians that they have a future like any other people on the earth, that they can live without the fear of their kids being killed when they're coming back from their schools, or of their home being bombed over their heads when they are sleeping, as what is happening in Gaza right now. The number of children under the rubble in Gaza is yet to be identified. UN agencies were saying they needed years, tens of years, to be able to clear the rubble again. So is Israel creating an environment which would lead to more faith and peace? What Israel has done is undermined 30 years of work to normalize the idea of peace. People have lost faith in peace. That is the reality. And the standing of all of us is declining. The standing of Europe has declined. The standing of the US, the standing of the logic of moderation has been hurt by Israel. It is all on Israel. And it is on Israel that international focus must be now, to ensure that Israel respects its obligations as an occupying power, respects its obligations under international law, and stop the killing of Palestinians and the destruction of the future of the region, and the killing of belief in peace in the whole region. Thank you.